All right, I would like to officially start February 18th, 2025, Littleton Conservation Meeting. A little bit out of order tonight. We're going to go ahead and start with our 7:30. And we're going to hold the administrative discussions till later on. This is a continued discussion enforcement order 15 Powers Road, unpermitted grading and fill in the buffer zone. We have Matt that is here to speak with us, and John. So Matt, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and feel free to screen share.
Okay, thank you, members of the commission, anybody in attendance from the public watching. My name is Matt Morrow. I am a professional wetland scientist and an environmental consultant. I am here to assist Mr. McGagan on his road to reclamation. As far as I know, up to date, he has provided the commission with a plan, some restorative narrative, and I'm here to see what I can do to finalize that and help you guys finish it up.
Okay, John, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Matt's seen everything that I've submitted to you guys. And I know at the last meeting, you guys were looking for kind of a brief overview with some bullet points and a time frame breakdown of work happening. And I've been super busy with work the last 2 weeks and I haven't finished that yet. So I'm sorry for that. I'll definitely have it by the next meeting. Other than that, I think where we left off at the end of last meeting was on a good note, and I'd like to keep going in that direction.
So I do have the last plan that John did send me that I could put up on the screen if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, Matt, because last time I agree with John. We had, I think, a very productive discussion, but it would be worthwhile, even if, Matt, you're let's say shooting from the hip here, to at least review the things we reviewed with John to make sure you and he are on board. John, I was hoping we'd be able to sort of wrap this up tonight, but understood. I don't think we're going to get too out of whack if we push it 2 more weeks. But my 2 cents is we should have this wrapped up 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, we've had a lot of snow in the last 2 weeks, and I do a lot of snow work during and post storm.
Yep.
I'm actually working right now still, so
yeah.
My apologies on that.
Matt, quick question, Matt. Did you have an opportunity to watch the replay of the previous meeting?
Didn't have the opportunity to watch the replay. Okay. I've actually been really tied up on my own issues, but please.
Yeah, so I think after this discussion tonight, it would be helpful obviously for you all to get back together, but to kind of go back and revisit that hearing, because there was quite a bit of dialogue.
Dialogues are right, and specific things that we wanted to see. For example, Matt, I think we asked John to work with you to come up with a bit more specificity in the replanting plan, where we did not, I would say, express any strong opposition to it, but we want to understand more generally than just 12 berry bushes, what that means, for example, and sort of normal things in a restoration plan that you, I'm sure, would advise John are normal, like seed mixes and things like that. We also wanted to see this plan revised to acknowledge some sediment and erosion controls as we worked on the bank. Again, things I think that you would advise John are very normal things. And what else was in there? There was one other thing.
I think one thing that comes to mind is also we had the discussion about doing discovery in the dirt, kind of like scarifying, seeing at what point we're getting down to viable soils that's not in a construction debris, that's something that's going to be a viable soil. So that discussion, I think, is imperative to listen to.
Yeah, we had talked about having one of the commissioners on site.
Right, but Matt needs to know that, because that's going to go into your sequence of things that are going to be noted in the filing or on the plans.
I can take care of that. So what I will do is I will review that meeting. Based just on the discussion you're giving me right now, I have a feeling I know exactly what you want. And I think it's well within the scope of what Mr. McGagan is able to do based on my discussions with him. So I will work on that with the driveway restoration, a planting and restorative narrative that goes, throughout this area that you guys are concerned with. And I'll get you guys more details on like a planting schedule, a monitoring schedule, and a reporting schedule. Those things should be fairly easy for me to do. Most of the drawings that I've seen from John actually are fairly accurate, and he's done a good job. So I can actually work with these drawings to base a narrative off of and have those revised so that we can get like erosion control put in, have places point out, what the plantings are going to be, where they're going to be, a herbaceous seed mix, etc. So I think it's something that we can handle pretty readily.
Okay.
And one
so
thing
we're-
to add to that, Matt, is I think we also asked for an understanding of scheduling when some of these things are going to happen. No, really, extensive thing, but a construction sequencing kind of bulleted list.
Right. And normally I think you guys are familiar enough with my restoration plans. That's what I usually try to accomplish, to make sure that is in there so that we have a clear understanding of what the timetables are, what you guys expect for inspections, construction sequence. Again, it's stuff that we can do fairly reasonably, for both Mr. McGagan's purposes and to make sure that the commission's concerns are satisfied. I'm sure I can balance this out pretty readily for you guys.
Okay, so we meet again on the 4th, and a reminder that where we meet on Tuesday, those files have to be in for the Thursday prior. Do any other commissioners have any other comments or reminders for the applicants?
Will it include a list of the items that are being removed off the property?
Yeah, actually, John did provide me with a list of items that he's removing from the property, so I will review those with him and make sure that the list is complete for the commission's concerns. And I'm just looking at lists now. Sorry, guys. I just want to make sure everything is. I'll get the record completed for you guys and make sure everything is in a good, one easy to understand packet that will get everything out of the way.
Cool.
Yeah. And Matt, I think, so you're aware where our sense is we're very close to the finish line here. So I think our goal is to have this buttoned up so that the restoration can occur in the spring during a good planting period and all that. So we really don't want to push this out any further than we need to.
Nope, understood. I'm just going to take a quick look here at. Give me one sec.
While he's working on this, have we had discussion of snow storage? Because it goes down the hill.
We haven't, Sarah.
It's just the bank that it would go off of is where the part is the most unstable.
If it makes you feel any better, Sarah, I don't put snow down the hill.
The challenge here is there's almost nowhere to put the snow.
I guess you kind of lost me. I don't put any products down in my driveway. I do one push down the middle of the driveway to the backyard. That's it.
All right, I can work on something to try to address that for both John and the commission that will make everybody comfortable.
Okay. All right, so with your permission, we will continue to March 4th, and Tim will let you know what time you're scheduled for.
Or just looking at the calendar, so I'll have all the materials in by the 27th, which is the Thursday before.
Okay, great. Thank you. Enjoy North Carolina.
Thank you. Hey, have a great night.
You too, Matt.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and open the 7:35, the point conservation restrictions. You may have noted that we've already voted on these originally back in November 23. Amy, would you like to speak to these, or is there, Ray, do you want to do that? What would you like to do?
Actually, yeah, Ray is here, and you are
Okay.
muted, Ray, so.
Yep. Ray, if you would like to introduce yourself and just give a brief history, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you, Sarah. So I'm Ray Lyons. I'm a conservation attorney based in Harvard, and I represent the various ownership interests that constitute the point. And a year and a half or so ago, we came to the commission for the approval of two conservation restrictions that are to protect the wetland on the left side of the property as you're entering it. This is part of the overall scheme for protecting Blanding's turtles and other listed species that are in those wetlands. After that, it turns out that technically there are three owners, not two owners, of the properties that constitute the point. So in the process of pulling other things together, including getting some little clarifications on the survey plan and details for the baseline documentation report, we're coming back to you to asking it to be approved as three separate entities. And if I can screen share for a moment, a picture might be worth 1,000 words. Let's see if I can find this. Well, I thought I had put it right up on my desktop, and I don't see it there. Well, I'll just continue with what I've got. There are three separate properties, and the middle one is owned by the market basket interest. And that one basically doesn't change at all from what you approved a year and a half ago, except for the dates. As for the other two, they are the property that you first encounter when you first come in. There's the map I'm looking for. Thank you, Amy.
Yep.
So the one at the very bottom of the property and the very top of the property were formerly both in the same conservation restriction. It really makes a lot of sense to split it up so that there's a separate conservation restriction for each of these areas. That way, if there's an enforcement issue that arises, you don't have to engage any of the other owners. It can be just an enforcement action against the part of the property that actually has the issue. So this actually is to turn it from two conservation restrictions into three. And you can, the wording is as identical as possible for the three of them. And you can see the three ownership interests that are assigned to each one of those CRs. So it's basically asking you to approve again the approval of conservation restrictions, except that as three CRs rather than two CRs this time. I'm also asking that, Amy, have they seen the baseline documentation report, the draft that was put together that is almost finished?
I was gonna say, yeah, a while ago.
Yeah,
And
a while
I
ago.
was gonna say, none of those conditions have changed, so
So-
that
so-
baseline documentation report's still good.
Yeah, the baseline documentation report, which was prepared by another consultant, it's actually probably the most complete BDR I've seen for a property of this size in my career. So
That was Steve Ives.
that was Steve Ives. Okay, so perhaps asking you to authorize one of the co-chairs to sign that as part of this process. So approval for the three conservation restrictions and also authorization for one of the chairs to sign the baseline documentation report.
Okay. Commissioners, do we have any discussion on this? I do have the references for the CRs.
I have a couple questions, Sarah, if that's okay.
Yep.
Ray, one thing you said with the market basket portion is that it was basically the same except for the dates. Do you mean that it is the same except for the dates, or are there other changes to the market basket portion?
In terms of substantive matters, there's almost no changes at all. I mean, this is mostly these are administrative changes that we're asking you to approve tonight.
Okay. And Amy and Tim, any thoughts from you all, things that you've taken a look at here that we need to be particularly aware of?
I don't think so. This spent a lot of time with back and forth with the EEA on EEA type issues having to do with splitting it into three. Town council has seen this, and the select board will hopefully be voting on this next Monday on all three of them.
And in that process, Amy, did we get any understanding of let's say the lines out there as far as the ecological significance of it are arbitrary, right? Like is there a sort of dispute resolution process in here where if some harm is coming from one portion of the property onto the other, like how does that all fit together? Because what I really don't want to do is get us stuck in the middle of different parties. And Ray, I appreciate what you've said about, individual parties that we can take enforcement actions against if they're in violation, but sometimes those things don't always, let's say, follow the arbitrary lines that we might draw on a map.
So let's think about that from a practical perspective. If something is happening in one part of this property that is affecting a different part of this property, and that's a subject to the conservation restriction, you're going to do an enforcement order against both of them because something is happening in the source property, and you're just going to take action against both of them. It's almost analogous if something bad is happening on an abutting property that something then flows into land that's subject to a conservation restriction. Especially you as the Conservation Commission as regulators, you have powers to protect wetland areas and species area that are actually independent of the conservation restriction. So with this one, since you are the holders of the conservation restriction, you're going to have your regulatory hat and you're going to have your CR grantee hats that you can wear to bring things to bear to get things correct.
Fair enough. Thank you, Ray.
And I'll say these properties, I think, are almost 100% buffer zone properties, if not wetlands. There might be one corner up in the northeast, but
everything is certainly riverine or wet.
yeah.
If I may, I see what the benefit is to the owners potentially to split this up, but what's the benefit to us? If we're essentially saying we're only going to be able to go after one person who may or may not have the money to do the repairs versus it's a single property, it's a single project. So why wouldn't we just treat it as such? Why would we split it up into 3 separate pieces?
I'll put my lawyer hat on. Do you want to have one defendant or 3 defendants if you're taking an enforcement action? You want to have
I want to have whoever's able to make the repairs. And my concern is if the person that happens to arbitrarily be identified for whatever part doesn't have the resources, then it's still one project. So why wouldn't the other parties be expected to step up and contribute?
But you do have separate owners. Market Basket is a separate owner, so Sam Park doesn't own all of it.
Yeah, these are property lines, not just lines of convenience, if you will.
Right.
Correct.
And we have several conservation restrictions. Monarch is probably one of the biggest ones where there's multiple properties and multiple owners that are been changing over the years. And it's easier to keep track of who's in charge of what if we do it parcel by parcel.
All right.
Okay, good question then. Okay. I would like to move that we approve the 3 CRs that we've discussed. And if we're okay with that, I will go forward with the 3 separate motions.
I'll second that.
Oh, Sarah, did we want to include in that motion the authorization of either you or Chase to sign the baseline?
I'm going to have to do it on, so there's going to be 3 separate ones. So I'll do that on each one.
Gotcha.
Okay. So the first that I would like for the commission to approve is CR 16875, also known as DSM MB11 LLC. So with that approval, we would also have one of the chairs sign that into effect. Do I have a motion to support?
So moved.
Second. All right.
Roll call.
Roll call vote. Let's see here. Ed,
Ed votes aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxwell, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Chase,
Chase Garabay, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
myself, I. It's unanimous.
The next CR is CR 16876, also known as the Point-LC4 LLC, Can we have a motion to approve that and also to allow a co-chair to sign that into effect?
So moved.
Second. All right, roll call vote. Chase,
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Ed,
Ed Foltz, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxwell, aye.
myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, and last, I'd like to have a motion to approve the CR 17464, also known as the Point LC1 LLC, and with that approval to have one of the co-chairs sign that into effect.
I think, Ray, I think that's 17463, or do I have a typo here?
Only
Not that it,
I had a 1 from what you sent me, but Ray, what is that?
I don't have it in front of me.
I don't
So
have it, in front of me, but
I had CR 17464, also known as Point LC1 LLC.
That is probably correct.
yeah, I'm sorry.
If you identify it as the LC1 point
Yeah,
PR, you will have covered all the bases.
Okay. To
So
approve it.
moved.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, who moved that? Sorry.
Michael
Thank you,
did.
Michael.
Roll call vote. Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Chase,
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Ed,
Ed Foltz, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxwell, aye.
myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you, Ray, for
What-
coming in, and thank you for all your help with that, obviously.
So one
What
more
I'd like to
question.
do,
So we
if
have
it
a
works for you all-
single
Oh, wait a
BDR
minute. We've
document.
got 2 people speaking. Amy?
What I'd like to do is if it works for Andrew, is have the signature pages, because we need live signatures from y'all, up at the town clerk's office, because it's gonna have to get notarized, so it'd probably be easier if it's just sitting up there. Is that okay with you, Andrew? It might be sitting there for a week or two.
That sounds great. Yep.
And I'm gonna have 2 copies in case the dog eats one, so there'll be 2
Sure.
originals. Actually, there'll be 6 originals to sign.
Okay. Ray, you had a question?
Yeah, so the question would be about the baseline documentation report. It is a single report, but it applies to 3 different properties. So I'm picturing that you'll be approving the BDR as submitted. There'll be 3 copies that'll be signed by the individual owners. So you will have an original signature for each of the entities and a report that you can put in a file for just that property owner. And then one of your co-chairs can sign 3 copies that I will be handing off to my client, 1 for each entity.
And Ray, when will this be recorded on the deeds?
So it still needs to be signed by the
select.
secretary, but
Okay.
that's been taking, that's actually a problematic thing. The secretary is taking forever to sign things off. But I want to I'm retiring in May, and Amy is getting ahead of me here in a couple of weeks. So trying to
We're
move
having a race.
along. Yeah, well, Amy's going to show me a little bit about how the beginning of retirement can look, because she's going to have a 3-month start on me. And Amy, it's been great working with you over the years, and I know the LCC is going to miss you. And
Back at you, yeah.
yeah. So it's just at this point for everything we're having to do with the points, there's just some logistics things. I heard you give your approvals authorizing Chase or Sarah to sign. I think we're in a good place.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, and happy retirement.
Yeah, congratulations, Ray.
And-
Thank you.
Ray.
Thank you. You'll still
Take
see
care.
me around. I'm just not going to be wearing a lawyer's hat.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, it's 7:54. We're going to open the 7:45 public meeting request for determination of applicability, 10 Sarah Indian Way, known as U27-15-0, reconstruction of a shed and dock permitting.
Good evening. This is John Brooks. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you, John.
Great. I'm gonna share.
Yep, go ahead, John.
I'm gonna share some slides if I can. If you give me 1 second.
And Sarah, while he's doing that, I think there's a number of people in the audience that may or may not have comments, so we just keep an eye out for that. I'm not sure who they're all here for, but
Okay.
Sorry, I've got the attendees list up. I'll keep an eye on that if you want to
Thank you.
discussion.
Okay, John, we can see your screen if you'd like to walk us through. And
Great.
John, you are the owner at 10 Sarah Indian Way?
Yep, I'm the owner at 10 Star Indian Way, and we're here to talk about a pre-existing shed as well as compliance with the local dock policy.
Okay, great. All yours. Go ahead.
So quick agenda, project description. We'll talk about the site location. And then I've just separated out 2 separate slide decks, temporary dock and a shed, and then questions and next steps. Project description is permitting of an existing temporary dock. There's two portions of that. One is a dock, and then there's an unconnected dock float, a swim float. And then with respect to the shed, it's a reconstruction of an existing shed within the original location and footprint. It's unsafe and in need of repair. And I'll kind of move quickly, but feel free to interrupt me if you guys want to talk about any of these slides. Here's the project location. It's on the southeast side of Fort Pond. The parcel is denoted by those yellow lines. The temporary dock, it's a pipe dock. It consists of 3 4-foot by 10-foot sections that are connected together. Has a pressure treated frame and all the hardware is galvanized. And then the dock float, it's 6 foot by 4 foot. It's not connected to the dock. It also has a pressure treated frame, galvanized hardware. And the floats are foam with polyethylene encapsulation. So they're plastic enclosed floats, which I believe is the standard now. I assume you guys are pretty familiar with these docks. They exist. Grassy Pond has one. Acton Arboretum has one. Just this is one of the sections. They're supported by galvanized pipe, and you put them in section by section, and then at the end of the season, you remove them out of the water. And then the dock float here is again 6 foot by 4 foot. You're looking at the deck on top, the frame underneath, and then those 2 rectangles on the bottom are the 2 plastic floats. And that's it. That's all I have on the dock. So are there any questions or concerns on the dock before we move to the shed?
Commissioners?
One question, John, is this dock, the materials for this dock, are they new? Or will they
No.
be new?
No, they're not. The dock's already built.
Okay, and that's what I was trying to figure out, if we were actually looking at a new dock or just trying to get the paperwork in order.
This is all retroactive.
That's what I figured. John, so as far as this dock is concerned, one of the challenges we've had in a couple locations is the encapsulated foam. If the plastic casing starts to break down, then the foam starts to break down and gets released. We have bigger problems with just foam itself. Is it all in good condition, I guess, in the sense that is the foam all fully encapsulated?
Yeah, it's in great condition.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to share a picture if you guys want to see it. I don't have a picture of it with me, but it's in great condition.
I have no reason to believe you're not telling me the truth. I just want to make sure as we look at these, we need to look at the condition of them, particularly when it's a dock that's been there for a while.
Yep, makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, when you say been there a while, geez, how old is this one, Mr. Brooks?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I'd probably say maybe 6 years old, 7 years old, something like that.
What's the lifespan of the floats? Expected lifespan?
I'm not sure. The company is called Permafloat. They're pretty well established.
Those last, especially if they're in good repair, and these are seasonal, so that they come. I'm assuming, Mr. Brooks, yours comes out in the winter or no?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So, and usually, if they come out, they have a very long lifespan.
Okay.
Yep. If you want to go ahead onto your shed, that would be great.
Okay, great. The shed is again reconstructing. Oh, sorry, I just moved slides. Give me 1 second. Reconstruction of the existing shed is unsafe and needed repair. Original location and footprint. What I am asking is the addition of some concrete footers for support, and you'll kind of see why when I go through the pictures. Here is a shot of the location again. There's a series of easements. There's effectively a single lane driveway that comes through that area. And then the star denotes where the actual shed is located on the other side of the driveway. Here's another shot. Interesting map from 1932. Looks like these roads have been here since the early 1900s. The project location is on the star. Here's some pictures of the existing shed. I'll just kind of quickly go through what's going wrong with it. I'd kind of categorize it as two things. One, maybe some, I don't know, lax construction standards, and the second is that there's portions of it that are deteriorating. So you'll see that there's a joist failure on the bottom left, and then the footing that they use is just cinder blocks. It's just kind of crooked and not attached, which isn't to code. Here's a picture of the floor on the inside. It's rotted away. You can see the walls kind of rotted away as well. Here's a shot from the side. You can see that kind of cinder block footing again that's kind of crooked. There's also no landing. You can't open a door on a stairwell. It's not to code. You need to have a landing for that. It's not safe. And then finally, here's the rafters, a shot of the inside. You can obviously see the rafters have deteriorated. And so here's a plan that I've drawn out here depicting the Fort Ponds up on the top left, the driveway, and the existing location of the shed. The circles denote kind of where I want to put a footing in. You'll see there's a few trees in green. I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, but there's a couple of trees in green on one side of the shed, and there's one in the back. And then there's a series, there's two stumps, one cluster, and then there's a stump in the bottom. And then I've marked, I've marked everything I think is relevant here. Proximity to the water, 48 feet top left, and then the bottom is somewhere around 41 feet. And then again, same location, footprint. And then I've added some mitigations, which I'm going to talk about in a subsequent slide. So I just wanted you guys to see the plan before I actually talk about the mitigations. We can come back to this slide. So I just did a little self-assessment on the risk here, identify the risk of the resource area, try and establish some mitigations, and then assess for residual risk. And obviously, you're welcome to partake in this. From my perspective, the only risk I really am aware of at this point is any kind of erosion due to the soil removed for the construction of the footers. So there's a few ways probably to handle this. One way is probably some sort of barrier to prevent the soil from moving. I just thought it might be easier just to simply move it out of the area. And then also in terms of the construction of the holes, it's dug by hand or auger, so no construction equipment. So effectively what we're talking about is 8 holes. Then from a risk perspective, I don't see a lot of risk on this project. There's really no impact due to the concrete posts from my perspective, and there's no additional impact of replacement of the structure. It's in the same location and the same size. I took a look at some alternatives as well. Here's a topographical map. You can kind of see that it is quite a steep area over there, which makes it challenging to move the shed anywhere. I kind of looked at 3 areas. The first area is one that just wouldn't work because it's simply closer to the pond. So moving it north is a property line. Moving it to the west moves it towards the pond, and moving it to the south effectively moves it to the pond as well. And then that second area, moving it to the southeast, I'm just going to move back to that topographical map. This is all wooded up here in this section here. It's also fairly steep. It's very steep actually. So it's not a likely candidate. As well, it's you'd have to take down trees in this section. So to me, that's not really a great spot either. So you'd have to regrade. I think there is one potential option to move it, and that's what I'd like to discuss with you all today. And that's really, let me just slide back a couple of slides. There is some space effectively 10 feet behind this shed where there are no trees. It's the stumps are sort of in the way, but I believe there's a chance I could straddle those stumps with this with this design. It's sort of it's the margin of error is kind of it's not a big margin of error because of the stumps are there and because I have a setback on one side and a tree on the other. But I believe it's probably I see no reason.
Is it your intention to try and keep those 3 green dots there? Your trees?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was the last slide. So we can take some feedback, concerns, comments from the commissioners.
Commissioners?
So are you moving the shed back 7 feet, I think you said? Away
Yeah.
from the water?
Yeah, I assume that would be a preferred plan from the conservation commissioners, as it adds a little bit more space, I guess, to the northwest of the shed, which to me isn't a bad idea. It allows maybe a bit more space for the trees, and those trees aren't going to last forever. So when they do come down, it'll give me a chance to plant some trees in that space. That's, I suppose, what the value is in that extra 8 feet of space. But like I said, it's kind of tight back there, and I kind of won't really know whether it's possible or not until I try it. But I do think it's worth trying, and like I said, if it doesn't work, the original location should suffice.
Is the roof pitch and everything staying the same materials? Are you asphalt or are you steel?
I haven't chose the materials yet. But with respect to the roof materials, I was probably going to use galvanized metal. It's supposed to be.
And the reason that we ask is that just because of pitch, and if there's more collection of rain or directional rain, we look at that in case you have any scouring with potentially more flow.
Yeah, I think I haven't picked the materials. I chose was probably a metal roof, to be honest with you. I think it'll last longer. In terms of pitch, probably pitch would change. You're concerned about the velocity of the water coming off the roof.
Correct.
Yeah, I can certainly think about that and put some mitigations in place for that. Hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, can I follow up on that as far as the location of it as well? Mr. Brooker, I assume that it's underneath this current one is unvegetated. There's no grass, anything like that.
Correct. Yep.
So I guess my concern with moving it, where I appreciate you looking at the alternatives and coming up with a potential alternative to move it, not knowing there, not having been out here, I'm questioning how realistic it will be to move it and then establish the area, the previous footprint with any sort of growth where we wouldn't see more erosion because we're exposing it to the environment. I'm wondering if it's almost worth. If anybody feel free to speak up against it. I'm just wondering if it makes more sense, even though we might gain 7 feet. Are we gaining benefits, or are we asking or creating the potential for more potential for other issues?
Yeah, it's a good point. I can tell you there's where the stumps are located, there's really nothing growing there. There's really no grass. It's all shaded. So you make a fair point. Establishing anything inside that extra 7 to 8 feet we get back would I don't know, would be something you would have to purposely do. I feel, just because of the amount of shade down there.
And I think where I would worry about what Kyle's put forward is that if we do have a galvanized roof pitched towards the driveway in Fort Pond, where now all that runoff is going right into an unvegetated, not stabilized area in the short term. I think there's solutions to it if we wanted to go that way. And John, if you wanted to go that way, there are definitely pros and cons though, right? Because the pro of moving it back is this current shed, the existing structure, doesn't have any deep foundations. You're going to have to dig right next to a couple of those trees.
Yep.
That's not great either. So I tell you, I can see pros and cons both ways. My 2 cents is to give you the latitude to make a decision in the field with parameters around what to do regardless of which direction you go.
Yeah, Chase, I think that's a great idea because Mr. Brooks, once you do some discovery holes or trying to dig, you might just hit all roots or all rocks. So, yeah.
And I at the end of the day, I don't think 6 feet is going to make that much of a difference.
I guess that was where I was going,
One
especially
way or the other.
when we're talking there's a driveway immediately downstream of this, like what it's. I get that we have a 50-foot number. Yeah, that's on paper, but in the field, what are we gaining?
Okay. So what would we like to do? Go with the presented plan or give the flexibility?
Well,
the unknown of the pitch of the roof and velocity, whether you put in a rain, some part of capture system, just a dry well or something. If that's needed.
Yeah, I would want to see it pitched away from Fort Pond with, at a minimum, like a stone trench at the drip edge to receive that water. To essentially function as a dry well for it. John, does that make some sense? What I'm describing there?
Yeah, I see what you guys are trying. You guys are trying to just make sure that the water doesn't cause erosion problems. So you seem to be okay with effectively. You're talking about like a curtain drain, Chase, or effectively a dry well, which is what was suggested as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, and like where underneath it, like where are you guys thinking? I mean, a curtain drain obviously isn't going to be. I mean, I could put it right underneath it and funnel the water into that, or effectively the dry well would be the same location.
Feels like if you just put in a trench filled with gravel or stone, whatever, so that the water isn't just hitting the ground and taking off. It goes in and has an opportunity to leach into the ground from there.
I understand Chase right though. Won't those stumps be exactly where that trench would be?
Essentially, yeah. Damned if you do and damned if you don't, right?
Well, but also there are certain types of drains that don't have to run the whole distance. They can be spot dry wells as well. So you can just work around drip areas. Historically, it's on the ends, and you could put it, scatter them about. It doesn't have to be one full trench.
I mean, I think the direction that we're giving here, though, is that the roof runoff needs to be infiltrated.
Yeah.
And I would be comfortable in this case asking Mr. Brooks to potentially come back and tell us how he would like to do that rather than us design it for him, as long as he understands the performance goal, which is we don't want to see runoff running down the hill.
I mean, you can always put gutters down into a dry well as well if you wanted.
Yep. Lots of technical ways to solve it.
Yep, sure.
Yep, that I understand. That makes sense to me.
John, I have a couple other questions if you'll indulge me here, and they're more like construction means and methods. You identified correctly, and I appreciate it, the risks associated with digging the footer holes. I like the plan to bring the spoils up out of the buffer zone. I have a question about mixing the concrete. Are you gonna do each footer individually and mix sort of in a wheelbarrow, or do you anticipate bringing in some equipment to do that?
I'm gonna do my plan was to do one hole at a time. Just that's what I can handle. I have a small electric mixer which would mix the concrete. So one at a time, basically.
Okay, couple bags at a time though. We're not talking about large quantities. So.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. With that, I would like to make sure that it's rinsed out as far up gradient as possible. The alkaline solution for rinsing out concrete can do not nice things to the water quality.
Sure. Yep.
But I'm not worried about it if it's a rinsing out the mixing of a couple bags. The other question I had was related to the size of the existing shed. So what you've shown here is a 10 by 20 shed with a, what do we have? A 4 by 10 stair and landing. What is the current footprint of the shed outside of the stairs?
The current is a 8 by 25, I believe. So
Okay.
I've actually
So you've just shifted the configuration around.
yeah, just to adjust for the setback, which is 10 feet. It's a little bit closer than that, so I wanted to adjust out for the setback.
Okay. And the stair and landing construction here, do I understand this right? North is up. So the door will be to the southwest, and then you'll turn and the stairs will actually come like, let's say parallel to the structure instead of directly away from the structure. Does that make any sense?
Let me try and explain. I'm gonna try and put the stairs to the southeast because it keeps it. It's just less stairs because it goes uphill a little bit, and I think it's flat enough that I won't have a problem where I'm trying to do like 8, 9 stairs to get back down to grade.
Okay. I mean, I'm conceptually good with this. I think the question, commissioners, we've got to sort out is this was filed as an RDA, and we probably need to, before deciding whether or not we want to approve this, decide whether or not we're comfortable with this as an RDA versus as a notice of intent.
Can somebody remind? We just did one of these recently over on one of the other ponds. What did we, Amy? What are we working with them on?
Yeah, the one that was just a little bit, planned north of here, which was, I don't know, extremely close to Fort Pond. I had said they should probably definitely do that as a notice of intent, which is what they did. But this one I did say, especially given the fact that there's the driveway in between the work and it's in the same footprint, that I thought the commission might accept an RDA.
Am I thinking of a different one then? I thought there was another gentleman who was replacing one.
Yeah,
that was in kind.
There's 2 of them. I actually have some backup slides if you guys want to see it.
Yeah.
Let me just pull them up. There was 2. Let me just pull it up. So one was, there's 2 of them. 3 Sarah Indian Way, which was the rebuild of an existing structure, addition of concrete posts. That was a negative determination with no conditions. This is what it looks like.
Mhm.
And this is what the dock looks like. And then the one that you guys just mentioned was 3 Cottage Way. That did come in as a notice of intent, rebuilding an existing structure. They added some helical posts. That's what that one looks like. So, either way.
And Amy, if we were to issue a negative determination here, can we still condition that a little bit? I always get confused on where we can add a couple minor conditions or not.
there's generally room, if you will, on the floor, on the form for 2 or 3 kind of short conditions. And the general guidance is that if you feel like you need to be adding more conditions than that, you probably should be taking a notice of intent. But there's definitely room to put on conditions. If you know, coming back for the final approval, or, you know, the erosion controls, or whatever you may or may not want.
Well, that's
There's
what I was.
room.
Do we think that there's? I mean, I guess there could be a need for conditions, or is this more of a we just need a little bit more detail in a couple weeks, and then maybe there aren't a lot of conditions.
Yeah, I think I follow you, Kyle, a little bit more, that if Mr. Brooks kind of like can solidify the roof, the pitch, kind of like what we want to do with some of the capturing of that rain, that might help answer some of those other questions. But I recognize there's a lot of snow and ice, and it's not like you can go and try and see if you can work around those stumps or not. But I'd be keen with, if we had a little bit more information.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Chase. Say if there's other conditions that you think that, you know, are necessary.
The condition that I was going to propose was that once Mr. Brooks gets the existing shed removed, that he provides the commission or the agent, Tim, an opportunity to come take a look at it. And because I imagine it's going to have to be field fit a little bit. And I think it would be worthwhile to condition an inspection from Tim there before he starts to build. That honestly, that was the big one. I presumed, Sarah, that we would ask Mr. Brooks to come back in a couple weeks with answers to those technical questions.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So I heard the roof pitch and the taking care of the water runoff. Chase, is there a particular concern driving the administrative approval of this? Like I'm meaning I think you said Tim.
Tim, yeah. What I would advocate doing, John, is not confining you to. You talked about building it in one location or maybe 7 feet back, and I don't think it makes sense as it sits today to say it should be one or the other. What I would prefer to do is you come up with a plan, then we give you the latitude to field fit it as it makes sense. But the way I would feel most comfortable with field fitting it is if Tim is given the charge of going out and taking a look at it with you once you've decided exactly where it's going to be.
Okay, so what do you in terms of what do I owe you guys besides the roof pitch and the drainage scenario for the? I assume I'm coming back the next time. Is that where you guys are leaning?
Yeah, so I was going to, I guess, clarify or ask Chase where your thoughts are. If this is a no-go where we're going to ultimately ask for an NOI, I feel like that's something we can tell them now, right? But I think it seems like we're in the process of we're going to come up with a negative determination as long as we get the information we need. Right?
I don't love negative determinations here, but I can get my head around it. Yeah,
okay. I just want to make sure we're not wasting 2 weeks of his time, right? To have him come back in 2 weeks and be like, nope, never mind. We want an NOI, right? It's not fair to him.
But fair question. No, straw poll. Yeah, let's go with a negative determination once we have all the sufficient information.
Yeah, assuming Sarah, Mike, Andrew, you are all comfortable with that as well. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah,
That sounds good.
that sounds good.
Mhm.
So, John, I think you were right to the roof material, the pitch, how you're going to handle the water. I would also ask you on that plan to just identify a general area in which you are going to keep construction materials. I assume it's going to be on the driveway, but if it's not, we should probably chat about that for a second. And then I think the last thing we should talk about is if any erosion controls are necessary here. And I'm with the driveway in between, I'm not sure they are, but we should give John good direction on that.
I think my only concern with that, with obviously cement mixing and sands and things like that, we know that projects take time. So I guess if this is what Mr. Brooks is going to do, like one hole at a time, might not get done in a weekend, we may want to make sure that the sand or materials is somehow preserved, either through, a wattle or up gradient or something, just so it doesn't slide.
think you need some kind of erosion control no matter what, because when he's digging the holes, there's going to be dirt coming out of those holes.
Tend to agree. So John, the last request would be essentially some erosion controls around the work area to make sure we don't mobilize anything out of it.
Sure.
And I think Waddles might be easiest for you.
Would agree.
Okay.
Can I ask one thing? Do you guys want to see information from John that in the event that the shed is moved back and built not in the existing location that it is right now, information or a plan to revegetate or stabilize that area that is currently unstable under the existing shed?
For sure.
That's
Yeah,
a great
that's-
question, Tim.
Yeah, that's where I was
Said that it was
heading
going
with
to
my.
stay on the same footprint. Wasn't that what we said earlier?
I
Yes.
think we're still gonna give him, and that's up for his thought. I think that, at least like what I'm hearing is that we're still giving him an option that if he does through discovery feel as though he could safely move it and that's viable, then he would have to figure out how to, vegetate the undisturbed area as best as possible.
It might be best to put that option on the plan right now and to see if it is moved, this is what I do, and
Completely agree.
put a line of erosion controls on there, get them on the
Because if he
plan since
moves
he's
it-
adding stuff.
If he moves it back, now you've opened up the space for, it's going to erode. It's just, it's not, it's protected today, it won't be protected tomorrow.
Yeah,
What you do.
I understand what you guys are asking for. It's not a problem. I will say that there isn't really any undergrowth in that area. It's just a weird soil topology. It's just stone and I don't know. But yeah, I can add that to the plan. The location of the erosion controls, as well as stipulating the plan if I move it back that 7 feet. How would I revegetate that area that's reclaimed? That's not a problem.
Revegetate or stabilize somehow, because
Yeah,
it
somehow stabilize.
might not work, yeah.
That was my
Right.
concern, right? If we do move
Well,
it.
and I think also you haven't seen it, so you don't really know what it's gonna look like underneath there as well. So,
You can
Once-
see under the shed. Yeah, it hasn't been it looks like it's the original grade. So whoever put that shed in did not regrade it. You can actually see a small stump under there still, and I think the shed was put in the early 90s.
Looks like you can see by looking right through the floor. Right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
Should leave your shed alone.
I didn't build it. You're not hurting my feelings.
Extra ventilation.
Okay.
Sounds good.
right,
So
so
we'll
we,
see you in a
if
couple
you
of weeks.
think you can, we meet again on the 4th, just communicate and see if you want to be on for the 4th or after that, which is the 18th.
Yeah, I'll be on for the 4th. I'll be ready.
Okay, great. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Take
thank
care.
Thanks.
Okay, it's 8:23, and the next is continued public hearing, notice of intent, 13 Winged Cove Road, Mass DEP 2041008. Bylaw waiver required, demolition, reconstruction of existing house and associated work, in addition to permitting docs.
I have not heard from Kyle. I sent him a couple emails and I actually was trying to text him tonight and it's a no-show.
Okay.
Amy, it looks like the last time we saw this project was August of last year.
Yep.
Obviously, because we have it on the agenda, we're presuming that it's still on. Have we explicitly asked if it's no longer happening? Do we know why?
Yeah, he definitely wants to move ahead, but he basically lost the construction season and this is his own house, so he is focusing on his business. And that's why this just keeps sliding because, he's not going to be working on it for many months. So that's why he's let it slide.
Do we want to push it out a couple meetings then, or just put it to the end, put it on for the 18th?
Who are you asking? Not having heard from him, obviously we want to also know what's going on, but at this point, it's on him to come to us, right? So
So wouldn't it
I
end
don't even
up
care if you don't put it on
list,
next meeting.
Yeah.
No, we have to put, we do have to put a date continued too.
Yep. So I would make a motion that we go out 2 meetings to March 18th
At a minimum, yeah.
and put it at the last one or the first one. Okay. All right, let's go ahead. The 755 transfer, because we still have the administrative discussions to go through this evening. The 755 transfer of NAGOG lot 107 discussion.
So that's been a little bit quiet. I have not been able to move that forward very much. There's been a lot of select board attention to the orchard properties outside of lot 107. What is interesting here, and I haven't had a chance to square up with the select board, is how some of the proposals on the table currently for the APR portion of the orchard could also impact the non-APR portions. There have been proposals to transfer all of the non-APR portions to other ownership as well. So I think they're wrestling with a lot of different pieces here, and I don't know how that impacts lot 107.
Okay. So do you want to table it for the 4th or the 18th?
The 4th. It has to be the 4th.
Okay. Okay.
And I would also say if the select board literally wants to transfer that property into private ownership, Concord Water Supplies can be all over you.
I think I got a lot of
the ones near the, yeah.
Beside the fact that we already have a town meeting vote that says it's intended to go to the commission to protect. So.
Okay, let's go ahead and approve the minutes from February 4th. Does anyone have any omissions or corrections from the 4th?
I just have a couple of them. Let's
Okay,
see.
thank you.
Here. So under the 195 to Hadawan Road topic, towards the bottom, there's a sentence. The commission mentioned that a minimum renoticing of abutters, and it says notice newspaper or something. So it should say and a notice in the newspaper. And further down, looks like the third to last sentence, it just says commission agreed. It should just be the commission. And the very last thing I had was under continued administrative discussion, 15 Powers is listed a second time, even though we had discussed it. So I'm not sure if we wanted to remove that one and then just keep the top one. And that's it.
Okay, thank you for those. Do we have a motion to approve as amended?
I move to approve the February 4th, 2025 minutes as amended.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, roll call vote. Chase.
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz abstain, I wasn't here.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ayes and 1 abstention.
Thank you. Okay, let's jump down to administrative discussions. Land use permits, Littleton Conservation Trust for the March Owl Prowl.
I'm not clear if there's anybody here for that. I don't recognize all the names. I think some wires went across, but the trust is looking to do an owl prowl on the properties that were noted on there in March. The date isn't set and the location isn't set because I got to make sure the owls are doing something at the property they want to go to, basically. So I don't know if you'd be willing to approve it with kind of those broad areas, or if you want more information. This would be an after hours work. I think she said 6:30 start, something like that.
I mean, what is a
6:30 at night.
What is an owl prowl?
Kind of what it sounds like. You go out and you listen for owls and hopefully try to see them.
Okay, thank you. Never heard.
Bunch of birding nuts out listening for owls.
I mean, I think the bigger question is, as long as the police department is okay with it, right? Like that's probably that 2 weeks ago when this came up, that was the question mark. Not so much like people walking in the woods at night, but people walking in the woods with flashlights in a group in the woods at night, and do they get the police called on them?
Yeah, I mean that's part of the whole land use permit, right? So once this gets finalized, they have to notify the police department, fire department, whatever, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
or,
they'll know the
or
dates
Tim and I can do that too. We get them to DocuSign it, send it over to the chief, and he will sign it.
Okay.
And they could just issue the permit saying that they're required to let us know at least 48, 72 hours in advance at a minimum.
Sure.
I hope they have good creepers for their shoes.
And this will need a vote.
And was this for Long Lake Park? Am I remembering correctly?
They picked 3 properties, and they're going to have to wait and see like where they're hearing owls, basically, which is why they haven't focused on one property.
I move that we issue date to be determined in the future land use permit to Littleton Conservation Trust for a March owl prowl on one of 3 properties.
Second.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Sarah,
Sarah Seaward, aye.
Ed,
Ed Bullseye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Chase,
Chase Carabay guy.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
and myself, I. It's unanimous.
Okay, Andrew, I think this is going to be up your alley. Community Preservation Act application review.
Yes. So since our last meeting, I did forward our invasive plant control application to the Long Lake Neighborhood Association. The association did review it and has given us their support for that project. So I have since submitted the eligibility requests and funding application to the CPC with that support. And actually, CPC is meeting tomorrow night at 7 in room 103 and virtually, and we'll be reviewing that application. So hopefully we get a good vote and it'll go on to town meeting and we'll have that going. The walkway project is still up in the air, depending on a couple of different factors, the quotes coming back, and basically the timeline for the dredging. That's still kind of up in the air at this time, but we're gonna do what we can to maybe get something through. But as of right now, we know invasive plant control should be, if everything goes well tomorrow night in town meeting, we'll have that in place for the early summer, and we'll do our best to get something done for the walkway. Oh, Sarah, I think you're muted.
All right, Andrew, that's great. Anybody have any comments for Andrew? Do you need people to go to that meeting? Are you all good?
We should be good, but if anybody wants to come, absolutely. I mean, the more voices in favor, the better.
Okay, great. Thank you for your time on that. Next,
If I may, Sarah, sort of on that topic, was it GZA, Geosyntec? I can't remember who it was. Wants to do some test borings around the frog pond, which I don't like calling it that, but so they can get more information on groundwater and stuff for the dredging piece of it. So initially they were going to do 3 pretty much along the trails, the pathway there. I said, yeah, it's awfully wet back in there. So they do have 3 just along the road, which would be very easy to get to, but they would like to do some in back. We're still going back and forth with them, and let you know where they want to end up doing it. I think if they do the 2 at the end, they won't have to do any kind of wetland crossing or anything. But the one in the middle, I think, could be a mess if they try to get out there.
what are we doing this by hand, or this is mechanical drilling? How far down?
I am not sure yet.
Okay.
I would push them hard to just do shallow manual borings there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's got to be soft enough to use a hand auger through there. You're not going to get mechanical equipment back there.
Right. Well, you never know.
Or they can replace the walkway after they run through it. So there you go.
Good strategy.
I mean, I've taken borings with, post drivers before. It's not fun, but you can do it.
Yeah, we're not looking for geotechnical characteristics here. We don't need a drill rig back there with an automatic hammer or something like that.
Right.
Okay, let's jump down to Shade Tree Committee draft.
I think I just promoted Matt.
All right.
Oh, there it is.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Matt.
How you
Remember
doing?
Matt?
Good to see you. So Matt Cahill, Shade Tree Committee, asked to come out and give you sort of an update as we sort of hopefully are working in parallel on our tree protection work. Share screen. Does that what you kind of wanted to see it? I can just walk you through it. Might be the easiest.
That'd be great, Matt.
Yeah. Okay. Shade Tree Committee just met last month. Just a quick background if everyone's not up to speed. We started this, it's a year ago now. I looked at our first draft. I said, wow, February. Wait, that says 2024 on it. So things are, moving slow, but they're moving. Last year we had things sort of primed. We had the draft in place, version was circulating. And then, we just had a hard time getting it to town council for review, but it went, sometime, I don't know, in the summer, maybe it was September, something like that. It was on a back burner, obviously all sorts of meetings. So they did just get us review this past month. So at last meeting, we sort of went over that, and I will show you that version, which is where we're at. Okay, can everyone see this?
Yep.
Okay. So the sections really haven't changed much from last time. I think you have seen a version of this. I'm not sure which one, but a version. And we're starting to go through. We got some good comments here. A lot of the language is pretty much the same. So we just kind of lead off with the overall mission of, shade tree committees. We want to promote trees and canopy cover and have it essentially be shown as something that has value to the town, and these are the reasons why we want to protect it, and all those good things. So your policy may have similar language, or we can share language. Either way, it's just a baseline, both groups talking about the value of trees and what it does for the community. We've got our scope. Not too much has changed there. So now we kind of get down to our first comments. So we cut down some of this, so making it more that any department making public improvements that will impact the public shade trees will notify the tree warden. So this was a bit more of a, hey, can we get some sort of departmental collaboration set up? And they just recommended, just tell them exactly what to do. Don't talk about it so much. So we're trying to get more specific as we go in the bylaw, which is appreciated apparently by everyone. So that's where a lot of the cutting, if you're going to see things taken out, is an attempt to just sort of get to the facts.
So Matt, I have a question here. The specific language is shall notify the tree warden, not the tree warden shall approve it. Was that a deliberate choice? Or do you intend that to be the tree warden shall approve? Because right now it actually reads passively, like, yep, we notified the tree warden.
So for any work, so the good thing about this bylaw is it does not supersede anything in the Massachusetts general law. So all the Chapter 87 stuff already states that public shade trees require hearing, and that's facilitated by the tree warden. So nothing that should already be happening through Mass General law is being changed. This specific number 4 here was an attempt to get our town to have more interdepartmental cooperation. Because who knows what's going on now? If one group has a plan and a couple trees are gonna be slated to knock down. I know as a shade tree committee member, we don't hear about it till right till the end. You know what I mean?
Till the chainsaws are running, right?
Just encouraging that to get written in somewhere. So hopefully that they shall at least notify. Then next time since he is a committee member, as we have a discussion, he said, "Oh, well, this project's coming along. This one's on the, this one's coming down the pipeline."
Okay.
So the definitions just cleaned up the critical root zone a little bit more, just saying that it's the minimum area required to be left undisturbed to provide tree a reasonable chance of survival. And then yada yada, some of the formulaics that go along with that. Tree protection zone is a larger portion of a critical root zone. A critical root zone exists within the tree protection zone. He was just saying that really doesn't come up anywhere else, but it's an actual item in the appendix. So that's still there. this is the big crux for us, and I'm not sure how it's going to impact conservation. So Shade Tree Committee, we have a budget item, that's approved every year with the town budget. What we're trying to do, and what we've heard is done in other communities, is that there's a separate fund, and that fund allows, if something happens, mitigation payment comes in, whatever, it goes into this tree fund so that it's used specifically for the replacement of trees, and then in the language was, planting, maintaining, watering, so there's, we were even going to add in, invasive species removal, whatever, the things that go around with the trees. So legal really had a hard time with this, and so they struck it. At the end of the day, they're saying you should probably take it out. Other towns do it, so it's not to say that it isn't getting done, but we would need to talk with them more about this, about the why. I don't know if Amy or anyone here who has a conservation trust fund can speak a little bit more to it, but is it something to do with a fee versus like a non-fee? Like a fee has to go to like the town, it can't go into a special fund. Does anyone?
That was my understanding when we met with town council regarding the tree policy that we've contemplated may or may not, but if it did, it have a sorry, I'm stumbling over my words, a payment in lieu of policy. And town council's issue there was, is it a fee or a tax, which is actually a very significant distinction. And then if it is a fee, my understanding from council was that either it would need to go to the town general fund, or there would need to be potentially another warrant article that created an account for those funds to go into. So there were multiple moving pieces that needed to come together there. And I'm probably not describing it fully accurately, but what we did get from council was it could be done. It's just not trivial to have a payment in lieu of component for the CONSCOM policy. One thing I think did make it easier for them with respect to CONSCOM is that we already receive fees for a number of different things, right? Application fees and permit fees and so on. So that may be a little bit easier for a CONSCOM policy regarding resource areas versus a shade tree committee and tree fund associated with it.
Yeah, and do you have a revolving fund? Because that's really what we were hoping to get out of this, is that we would have a place to put money that isn't tied to the fiscal year budget, where it's like, quick, spend and get these trees in the ground, and we're always up against it, and you're always waiting for the tree delivery. So like to be able to have a revolving fund and be, well, we're not going to use it, this spring, we'll use it in the fall, and it's not the end of the world, would be a super huge help for us. But again, I don't think at this point they're recommending it.
The fees that we get from the state applications under the state regulations goes into a revolving fund. The fees we get from the bylaw go to the general fund.
And my understanding, Matt, is that if we wanted a revolving fund for tree purposes, because I think our thought process was the same, there would have to be a separate financial mechanism to create that revolving fund. In other words, it can't, this is just my poor engineer's understanding of what the lawyers were saying. It can't just be created by this bylaw. There are other steps that need to go into it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I will tell you from my perspective, and I don't mean to speak for the whole commission, I think this is something that should be pushed on, right? Like, let's find a way to do this. And if it's a multi-step process, then so be it. Let's go through the multiple steps.
Right. Yeah. And so as far as timeline here too, in general, as we talk to people, we're, maybe we're still trying for this spring, but as time keeps moving, I'm not quite sure. I've talked to a few people, and I think most folks understand there's no sense in rushing this. Like, let's just make it good. I know there's pressure to the town. I know that trees are being cut, and that we should have better language in place and bylaws in place and policy in place, but I'd rather have it done right. So, but this item in particular could be something that is, revisited after the bylaws set, and then the process of getting the revolving fund set or whatever happens over time. So anyway, I just want to really make sure to point that out to you. That was the big takeaway from legal.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is pretty important for our own policy as we continue to pursue it, because isn't that where do we reference a shade tree fund? I feel like that was where our in lieu of payments were going to go. No.
No, actually, I think where we got to with council is that if there was going to be a payment in lieu of, it would actually have to probably be separate from the Shade Tree Committee.
Okay.
Because of the different geographic footprints that we administer, right? Like we would be looking at trees being removed from resource areas, and therefore that money should be spent in a manner that is dedicated to resource areas.
All right, that's right.
That paragraph that's struck out, is that a new paragraph or is that something you had? And
Section 6 was the request for this fund, so to speak, and it was struck.
so it was new then, okay.
Yeah, so I'll keep moving in the interest of time here. But that's that one. Let's see here. So we did some more, just some more customer wordsmithing here. We do have to go through and sort of grab pieces of town code and start filling things in, as we talk about. So non-applicability obviously will be you guys, Conservation Commission, in your jurisdiction, some of the other places. So grabbing those pieces, getting them dropped in. You wanted to tighten up sort of duties and responsibilities between tree warden and shade tree committee, which makes sense. Again, the idea here is just to sort of keep it in line with what's written in Chapter 87. So instead of saying that, tree warden and, Conservation Commission, shade tree would be, developing policy, it's really the legality goes to the tree warden, and then recommendations are made by tree committee. So we've sort of split that out. So there's just been a couple of strike throughs here, trying to clean this up and just say, okay, legally, here's tree warden, here's the powers. But the next section, tree committee, we're going to do what we do, the recommendations. We're going to develop a draft, create, help craft rules, regulations, tree inventory manuals, our public education trainings, all that sort of good stuff. So, the comments here from council is really just sort of separating those, keeping everything in line with Chapter 87. Just shortening, I should say.
The highway department agreed to be the tree warden?
He is. Yep. Steve Witten's our tree warden, in case anyone here doesn't know. He sits on the committees. He's always there. It's really great. We've got a good working relationship with our tree warden. So this has been, and the last meeting he had some suggestions and revisions he was going to get in as well. So that's good. We're kind of going to just work through this. Let me just see. Okay, that one done. Got that one done. Okay, so sorry. Let me just. So the standards, and then we have. So it's our industry standards, ANSI A300. That's, if you look that up, that's arboricultural, best management practices by industry professionals. That's continually updated, so that's why we're going to reference it in the bylaw, because it's referencing a document that is updated, so we won't need to update the bylaw. And as we went through this, anything that does or will need, sort of that constant adjustment would be moved to regulations, so we don't have to go all the way back to town meeting every time. So just keep in mind that that's happening along the way. Our provisions, so we've got our 3 sections. It's the planting, it's the removal, and the protection. So this is going to be kind of ugly. I'm just going to warn you. Actually, this version's a little bit cleaner now, but a lot of just sort of cleaning this up, talking about the planting of trees. So what we're trying to tackle also simultaneously, Chapter 87, Mass General Law, tree warden has the power with the approval of the homeowner to do a setback tree. So we were also kind of toying around with the idea of, somehow doing these setback tree plantings. So we talk about planting within the 20-foot right of way, permission from the property owner. Town resident would have to sign a document to agree to water and maintain for a period of 3 years. So this was sort of stuff that council was saying, let's get more precise. Let's get that in there. Whether or not this is going to happen, we tried it last spring. We managed to do like one. It's actually pretty hard for a volunteer committee to pull this all off. So I don't know how much we're going to get into this. Highway department just, there's a million things on their plate. They really don't have the time to be doing, private property, essentially, these sort of setback, type trees. So we haven't fleshed out that program yet. That's another thing just to keep in your mind that's sort of on the back burner that maybe we'll get into. We want to write the standards and specifications in such a way that, any of those types of trees that are paid for through, committee funds would be planted properly with the ANSI 300 standards. Everything's as good as we can get it, so the trees have the best chance to survive. He wanted more clarifications on removals. He went back and forth because we're talking about city and city-owned land. So, what does that mean? That's not just the right-of-way, right? We've got schools, we've got parks, we've got playgrounds, we've got, actually at our meeting, the high school students came in to talk about some work they wanted to do, removing invasives and planting natives, and that's all great, but that brings them to us to have these discussions, which is pretty much how it should be. So it was really great to see that, and they're going to put together a great project. So again, we'll try and have that. He was asking a bit more about clarification on, what is an inch by inch? So if someone's in violation, they haven't gotten, proper approvals. So if someone cuts down a 10-inch tree, we would need 5 2-inch, caliper trees to sort of have that equal sort of inch per inch. So we sort of spell that out, what that is. Right now, I think the existing policy, just in general, if a tree is removed, it's like a 2-for-1 replacement. And this would be if something was in violation, so we could sort of maximize the number of trees that are coming back in. This sort of circles back to around like, well, what if I don't have the room to plant all these trees? Well, then in lieu of, it would be the money would go into the fund, so it could be used somewhere else. Not having that makes this a little bit more complicated. But we'll revisit that too.
Matt, did you, and maybe I missed it in here, do you ever define hazardous trees? Because that's one of the things we've been wrestling with. Because your removal says the process for removal of non-hazardous public shade trees. Essentially, who decides it's hazardous?
For us, it's the tree warden. It's pretty easy for us. The tree warden goes out, will assess the tree and determine whether or not it's hazardous. So for us, at the end of the day, all the decisions come down to a certified trained professional. So for you guys, I think the onus would be on then someone has to acquire the services of a certified arborist, mass certified arborist, to get the determination of what's hazardous and what's not hazardous. Or tree conditions, or all the sort of things that are going to happen, in that process of determination. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit more complicated for you guys.
Yeah, and one of the things that's important to us is we don't, particularly as we're looking at private property where there could be a hazardous tree, we don't want the town to be in a position of saying, no, that tree is or isn't hazardous. If, let's say, the town were to come in and say, nope, it's not hazardous, then we're a fall over on someone's house who, I don't think we want the town to have that responsibility in those much more, I'd say, risky circumstances.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see. Just kind of outlining public shade trees, you know, talking about what can and can't be removed. At some point, let me see if it's in here yet, or if it was just talking about the removal of invasive trees. So we also had some comments. I'm not sure how we ended up getting it, but from Rob Routs sent in some comments, and a few of those things, like it was a good catch. You know, we didn't have the appeal section in yet, so I'll scroll down here in a second. We've got that in there now. But some of the, you know, questions and concerns around the invasive trees, and you know, obviously we want to be able to remove the invasive trees. That's, where is it, under 13? Oh, here we go. So that was kind of this section here. So talking about emergency provisions. So emergencies, trees that are hazardous as determined by the tree warden. There's your answer. Invasive plants as identified by the town tree guidelines. So we have that. LE Light Department, disease infestation, and then he also recommended adding fallen trees that are obstructing trails on town-owned conservation land. That's kind of good. I guess that was a kind of good. Not really sure how that would have fallen into whose jurisdiction or what, but just at least get it in there. It's like, oh yes, trail stewards, please, yes, let's get this sort of stuff done. Sort of under the emergency provisions, you know.
I would also say, in terms of identifying invasive trees, I wouldn't use the tree guidelines. I would use the state invasive species list.
State and species,
It's gonna be
right.
a lot more comprehensive than what we have, and it'll be up to date.
Oh, good idea. Okay, make a note of that. Right, but okay, so for example, though, just to touch on this real quick, because this was, you know, just something that he had written, like, oh, maybe we should just make it so that, you know, if you have an invasive species, you can take it out. But, you know, I had in my professional life, I'd written an article sort of about this, and it's like, there's some, so I worked in Boston for a long time, and if you removed every Norway maple in Boston, right, people there would have no trees. And so they are providing ecosystem services in these, like, very dense urban, you know, neighborhoods where you're not going to get a forest of sugar maples, you know. So I'm like, look, there's a time and a place, you know, there's value to be had here. You can't just go through and blast out the entire forest canopy, because you're going to lose, you know, you're going to lose all sorts of stuff. So the project that the students were doing, they wanted to take out the pear trees. Great, that's awesome, you know, but it brings them in to have the discussion, you know, well, what's the replacement? You know, how are you going to phase this in? And what tree species are going to be used? You know, so it just, I'd rather have people in and not just have a blanket approval for taking out everything that needs to be taken out. Because we want this to be done in an appropriate, in a process that works for everybody. So that's a little bit of the thinking there. Enforcement. A bit more talking about that, fines and things. We'll have to get that sort of cleaned up. So anything sort of money related, TBD, appeal section would be put in. This has not been vetted yet. It was just, I'm not sure what the standard language is, but basically people are able to appeal. And the rules and the regs that will be developed by tree warden with approval from select board. So that's sort of the flow. For the regs. And that's about it. It takes us about to the end, and we'll have some appendix, we'll have some references, we'll end up developing regs that'll go along with it. I think part of that would be, you know, tree valuation formulas, you know, things like that, things that we can adjust over time, depending on pricing. So yeah, I don't feel we're that much closer. You know, it was great to get feedback, but now you kind of go, oh, okay, we got to go do some work again. So I just gut reaction. Don't think that this will be a spring item, but this is where we are at the moment.
Matt, would you mind to drop that in my email inbox so I can take a look at it in more detail?
Yep, sure. And I'll just even just give me a couple more days. I'll get the feedback from the committee and then
Yeah.
the tree warden, that
Yeah.
everyone's still kind of working on stuff. So I just wanted to have a draft in front of you guys today, just so you see where we're at. So we can talk through maybe, are you guys in a similar place? So yeah, it sounds like you've just met with town council.
We're farther behind you. That's my fault.
All
But,
right. It's not a competition, but
little competition wouldn't be the unhealthiest thing.
Yeah, I would say
but-
that might be what we need to keep pushing these along, right?
It's only a competition if you're in the lead.
Amy's going to finish it before she retires, right?
Yep, absolutely. You gotta live with it though if I do.
Trees good, cutting trees bad. Don't cut
Done.
trees.
Don't cut.
yeah, I mean, it really comes down to the dollars and cents. You know, all the questions are going to be around value. Why are you valuing trees? Where's the valuation formula? Where is it coming from? You know, so getting that sort of hammered out, and I mean, at the least, you know, we'll have something that you guys can point to. Okay, this is what the town is already doing. You know, maybe it's not great. Maybe, you know, it's just the 2-for-1, or maybe it is sort of the inch for inch. But yeah, we need something.
We certainly appreciate all your time and effort and everyone that's contributed with this, Matt, for sure.
Absolutely.
The living, breathing document.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I'll just we'll get a few more drafts in, and then I'll send it around pretty soon. You can take a look at it, and hopefully helps you all. If you have any questions on the work that you're doing on your tree stuff, you know, just always give me a holler, and we can collab.
That's
Sure.
great.
You can guarantee that.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, good seeing you all.
Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you. Night. All right, we have a couple more things. Conservation agent and assistant agent. We have an interview, obviously not today, Tuesday, next Tuesday, that Chase is going to sit in on that.
And Andrew, I think, right? Or I think we're still sorting that out. I thought you were going to sit in on it. I'm
Right.
also available. We'll coordinate.
Yeah, I just had that as an agenda item in case we had anything specific to say, and I don't know that we do right now.
No, I think we're good, and we'll come back to that. Tree removal and dock filing checklist. Those have been in for the last couple agendas. I looked at both. I think they're great. Anybody else have any feedback or comments or edits?
Yeah, we got some from Michael, and the current version, which I don't think you actually had, has his comments in it.
Okay. So maybe if anybody has if we could put that on for the 4th, maybe circulate it before the 4th. So that way it would be great coming into spring to have that already done. So
Yeah, and that way we can also, it can just be something that sort of stays for a draft, take it for a test drive, see how it goes for a few months, and
Okay.
tweak as needed.
Yeah, that's a nice thing about those, right? Is that they don't carry the force of a bylaw. We can adjust as we go.
Yeah, for sure. I know usually we put it, my bad for missing this. Usually if anybody had anything they wanted to add to the agenda, I have one item. Does anyone have anything?
I just have a quick one.
Sure.
Did you want me to go now or?
No, go ahead, Andrew. Yep.
Oh, thank you. So I know that annual reports for the departments are due or were due on the 14th. Did we do one?
Tim did, and I finally commented on it today, so it's in.
Yeah, we sent
Oh,
it.
And we
Congratulations.
can circulate it too if you want, anybody wants to take a look at it.
Okay.
That'd be great, actually.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing
Tim,
that.
why don't you just send that around and
Thank you.
Well, this is a sad day for Amy Green. This is her last official meeting to be with us, although I feel like she'll join us on occasions for other things. But I know I speak for myself for all these dedicated years that words cannot express my gratitude and all that I've learned working with you, and from out in hellacious conditions to sitting in rooms and editing things. It's been a joy and a pleasure for me to have an opportunity to work with you on so many different projects.
well, thanks. It's it's been a great commission to work with over the years, and all your predecessors. I'm impressed by the energy and dedication that comes up with these nights. What is it? 9 o'clock. Well, when I first started, you guys were easily running till 11 o'clock. So at least that's calmed down a little bit with the big subdivisions quieting down.
That sounds like a jinx if I ever heard
Well,
it.
Yeah, way to
Ruined.
walk out on that, Amy. Nice.
Bye-bye.
Healy Corner.
Maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
Sarah, I think you hit on it. Amy, I've learned so much working with you. It has been an education, and I'm going to miss working with you so very much. And thank you so much for your patience with all of the inane questions and attempts to get clarification on understanding things and keep coming back at it. I really, really appreciate how much you've taught me,
No,
and I
thanks.
think the
And
rest of us.
I've learned a lot too. So when I jumped to the other side of the table from consulting to regulatory, you see things a lot differently. So it was good to you keep learning stuff.
Mhm.
No, and you've mentored so many of us that it's
Oh,
been
for sure.
you've been very gracious for
Yeah.
all our questions.
Say
And I think
all
I've
of
made
us,
it
not
pretty
even
clear that any of you who are up, and I forget who it is up in June. Like you're not allowed to abandon Tim.
And that's it. Right now, she's looking out for Tim. That's
Yeah.
even better.
Yeah, right.
Well, I know that you have lots of hopefully some fun travel planned, and get ready to do some
Excellent.
great things in the spring and summer. And
You better believe it.
I wish you all the
Awesome.
best, and I'm confident we will be seeing you or calling you. Hopefully, we're not going to change your telephone number.
No, this is great because I can just log in now and just bitch at you guys. What do you think you're doing?
Well, I know that I would love to have you hold us to the fire for sure.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I would
That's,
not. I would not.
That's good. All right. Does anyone have anything else before we sign off on this evening?
I guess that was it for me.
All right.
We can follow up after that. I feel like that's the appropriate way to end this meeting.
Okay. Would
Hold
someone
it to
like
the
to
next
make
meeting.
would someone like to make that formal last meeting for Amy official?
Official motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Roll call vote. Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Ed.
Regrettably.
Yeah, duly noted. Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, bye.
Chase.
If I say nay and we don't pass this, do we keep Amy?
Got nothing whatsoever
Aye.
to do with it. You can stay
Aye.
here all night.
That was a good try, Chase.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
And myself, it's unanimous. We're officially adjourned. Thank you so much, Amy, for everything.
Yep.
And